Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of
Gato.
My name is Hans,
I'm Edward.
and we are your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until one of us becomes famous novel writers, and just...
I'm so glad you're doing these positive affirmations because I was just like, as you started, until one of us, and I was like, "What? Are we gonna die? Are we gonna
Like,
fall?
oh no.
Like what? Like I was like, oh, is he breaking the positivity streak?"
I try not to. I'll try to keep it up.
If you are one of our regular listeners, welcome back, bitches. If you
So?
are new, welcome to one of the internet's best repositories for gaming, entertainment, technology, and lifestyle, news, reviews, previews, and discussion, all wrapped up in a wonderful...
Pinata of good things.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, so we can bash its
Yeah.
brains out and then eat the goodness.
Yeah.
You know?
So we can get all the things,
Edward, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually very good. No caveats to that. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Actually,
Okay.
this week, or rather this weekend, I'm not really sure when those of you who will be listening to the podcast will listen, but it is my parents' 45th wedding anniversary. So we're going to be
Ooh.
celebrating in a little bit of a muted fashion because of COVID, but either way, it's just a wonderful celebration. 45 years. And if you're watching this video, I'm
That's
going to tilt my head
amazing.
ever so slightly, and you will actually see something that I've bought for them, which is a secret. It's these beautiful gold roses that last up to, I think, 2 years. I think they've been dipped in like 18 karat gold or something ridiculous. But I just thought it was something
dope.
lovely
Wow.
to commemorate. Well, I hope they don't hear me. I know they don't listen.
That's
but
what I was thinking as well. The moment you saw that, I was looking at your door, or where I know your door is. And I was like,
Alrighty, so let's launch straight into our review section. It's a good one this year. This episode.
This year, it's so far
Well,
it's been good.
this year has been surprisingly good as well. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Let's be real. For those of you long-time listeners, you'll know there's a lot of movie content this week, and there'll be even more movie and TV series for next week because Netflix has released something I'm so keen to watch, that new Shadow and Bone show. And everybody's
yeah.
raving about it. They're kind of like it's
It
the
looks
young
amazing.
adult version of Game of Thrones, although I'm hoping it's a bit more Game of Thrones than young adult. But of course, we'll save that for next week because goodness knows I will have finished it by then. So,
Yes.
we also do have some video games in the wings, but nothing for this week. And of course, we no longer want to give you guys too many tantalizing previews, other than the fact that we were supposed to receive code for a certain game and we didn't this week. But we'll speak about that at a later stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're investigating. They're not sure why we didn't because they use automated systems, things we have spoken about in the past. It's quite cool when it works, but, things are not infallible, as we know in the previous episode where my voice disappeared. So reining it back into reviews and previews. I watched a lot of movies in the past week, more so than TV series. And I came away mostly disappointed.
Well, yeah. If I look at the list of movies, I know many of these were average at best.
So let me just go right into the first one, and that is Thunder Force on Netflix. Now, I'm sure many of you are just hearing that word, and you're just like, why, Hans? Why did you forsake yourself to 2 hours of drivel like that when you could easily tell from the trailer that this was something that should have been skipped, given how even the trailer had such bad CGI on Melissa McCarthy's face?
Not even the trailer. Okay, this might be a bit controversial, but even Melissa McCarthy herself, I don't think any movie associated with her is good.
She has her moments, right? Like, as far as I can recall, and I stand to be corrected, I think Bridesmaids was her big sort of coming onto the scene, right? And she was absolutely hilarious in that. And unfortunately, I think for her, she's been typecast ever since. So, there have been one or two roles where she's been able to, portray a more serious character. And I do remember one where I think she was not a spy. I don't remember if she was a spy or just some lady, but she actually did a very decent job in that role. Anyway, back to Netflix's Thunder Force. It is supremely disappointing. do not bother watching this pile of trash unless you really have nothing better to do with your time. Now, of course, I am approaching this very much from an adult standpoint, as well as somebody who really does enjoy quality. Never mind the fact that I guess quality is subjective to many people. But what I'm basically getting at is Godzilla vs. Kong is a better film than Thunder Force. And that really should tell you everything you need to
Oh,
know about whether or not
that's saying a lot.
whether or not this is even worth having on in the background. Now, with that said, I do feel that maybe children would probably get the most out of it. And that's just
Mm.
because it's really very made for children, I guess, you know? I don't know how else to say it. You know, like it's got that very Disney feel, Disney show feel where things are really hammed up and, cliched and you know what's going to happen and the acting is bad. Now, with that said, Melissa McCarthy and Olivia Spencer, they do their roles justice. They do as good as they can with whatever script they've been dealt with. But it's the
Mm.
supporting cast, the unknowns in the role, specifically Olivia Spencer's daughter, and then the kids that they cast at the beginning of the film to portray the younger versions of Melissa and Olivia, and they're just awful. It's just bad. In addition to that, the special effects are it's clearly a made for TV movie. I don't that doesn't often happen anymore, with modern technology, but gosh damn, is this movie just really bad. Like, I mean, there is a very particular scene which somebody pointed out to me on Twitter when I mentioned that I was watching this film. And I didn't realize it was in the trailer. And it has to do with when she picks up the bus to throw it, the shadows are not right on her face. And it's not corrected for the movie either. It's literally bad. It's just bad, like badly done.
Maybe it's meant to be that way. Like
No,
Shark Boy kind
no,
of
it's
bad.
no. No, I think if it was meant to be like a Sharknado kind of thing, it would have been really, really hammy straight from the get go. Like the premise is
Uh,
the premise is really good. It starts off with how there was this mystical event, and what it did is it made everybody who was a sociopath. It gave them abilities. So every sociopath in the city gained superhero abilities. So the premise is very interesting. Like, what do you do if only sociopaths have abilities? Like, how do you control this? Like, it's got an interesting premise. And
mm,
then what happens is Olivia Spencer is the scientist who naturally, she devotes her life to science because her parents were killed by, I forgot the name that they give these bad people or whatever they are. Um, so she devotes her life to it and she finally finds like a super serum, which Melissa McCarthy accidentally injects herself with, obviously. Anyway, then the movie, it plays out and the premise is good, but the execution is just awful. It's also, and I really don't like this word, but it is super woke for the sake of
mm,
being woke. And like
yeah.
what I mean by that is I'm all for representation of anything and everything, okay? Everybody should be included and inclusive, but it is so forced in this film. Like
Mm.
it's been included for the sake of being included, not because it's there to help further the cause. That's what I'm trying
S-
to get at.
See, that's detrimental to the cause, in my opinion.
Look, it's not
Uh,
done in a puerile manner at least, but it's kind of like it just gets shoehorned in and you're like, okay, fine, whatever. It's not a
uh,
big deal. But anyway, it's not worth your time. If you have children, maybe put it on for them, but then you best be reading a book or something on in the background because you're going to be bored
mm.
out of your mind. Anyway, that's Thunder Force. Disappointing. Netflix. Disappointing. The next movie, also a Netflix original, it's called The Dig, and it got a very small cast with the two most notable actors being Ralph Fiennes and Carey Mulligan, and they basically drive the movie forward. Now, it's very much a slow burn, and it has to do with archaeology. How Carey Mulligan's character owns this piece of land, and on it there are these mounds, and she contracts Ralph Fiennes to come around and possibly dig through them and see what can be found. And just so
Mm.
happens they find something from the Anglo-Saxon era. So it's got a interesting premise in the sense of it's set in old World War II Britain, and they show aspects of the war and how it's devastated families, and how they did their best to preserve archaeological sites and facts from the destruction by the Germans, and so on and so forth. And I thought that it was a decent movie. I would say average going towards good because the acting is very, very, very good. But it is slow and it you kind of wonder what the purpose really is to the film. Mainly because it's about excavating this Anglo-Saxon ruin from Vikings and whatever the case is, but there's no real narrative to speak of. It's basically Karen
Mm.
Mulligan's character, and she's basically dying, and then she gets this guy, and they form a nice relationship, and then you kind of know that at the end, when she passes away, because the husband already died in the war, that the little boy will be looked after by the archaeologist and his wife. So
So it's just it's
it's
just a train of narrative, basically,
yes,
just
it's
going
basically it's
on.
like a snapshot into this life, which is not bad. Like I previously spoke about Minari,
Mm.
which did it expertly with the Korean
Mm.
family in the 80s America. Now this is
Yeah.
similar, except it's a war torn era. So if you like a period drama, it's good. It's quite sad.
Mm.
Not like okay, well, I didn't cry in the film, but you get to the point of tears.
Mm.
But it's okay. It's not bad. It's not bad. Now moving on to something else, another this time an animation, and weirdly enough, this is an Oscar-nominated animation from Apple TV.
Mm.
So it's called Wolfwalkers, and it's it's beautiful, if too long. So animations are generally short for a host of reasons, namely because they are targeted towards the youth, children.
Mm.
This movie borders on 2 hours, and I can actually tell you, as an adult who was invested in the beginning of the film, it really drags on, mostly because it's a very overdone premise. You know it already. You know that there's a character, and then this character meets other characters which possibly need your help, and they're going through something because there's a big bad that's involved. And then, the protagonist's father doesn't believe in her. It's the typical cartoon trope.
Yeah.
They use a lot of the same mechanics from all of the previous ones. Where the movie does excel is in audio and visual design. It is a spectacular animation, and in that regard, I would say it's well worth just watching, just for the technicalities of how they did it, because it's not clean. So what I mean by this is, it's kind of, to me, it was like a mix of Disney's classic Sleeping Beauty with something new like Dex's Laboratory. Oh, I say new, but you get what I'm trying to get with.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a merger of the two with like an extra bit of unevenness. And when I say unevenness, I mean like they purposefully leave in certain lines to show where they're drawing like joints and things. It's a bit difficult to explain,
Mm.
but it's a really beautiful aesthetic. And the story itself is okay. There's a nice resolution towards the end and how they become a family, but it's the typical cartoon thing. It doesn't push the boundaries in the way that something like Avatar does. With the Legend of Korra and so on and so forth. Like those might be animated, but gosh damn, are their narratives exceptional.
Mm.
So Wolfwalkers is it's decent. I would say it's good, I suppose, because it's a beautiful story, but it is very long, and I can't imagine children being entertained. I think if I got bored, I would imagine children would get bored much sooner than I did throughout the film. But it's by no
Yeah.
means bad, and unfortunately, I neglected to write down who the voices were for the cast. But I suppose I do know that Sean Bean was one of the characters, which I thought was really quite funny because of Game of Thrones, and also his voice is so instantly recognizable. So
Did he die? That's the
I
question.
will. I cannot reveal what happens in the film.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Okay.
um. So yeah, Wolfwalkers, decent animation. I would have liked to have.
Mm.
I would have hoped it would have pushed the boundaries a little bit more in terms of narrative, but from a visual perspective and audio perspective, it's beautiful. Another film that we watched recently, Wild Mountain Thyme.
Mm.
Avoid, avoid, avoid.
Oh. See, I was wondering about this one because it
No,
looks
I mean
genuinely
no. Look,
good.
it's not awful. It actually has a bit of charm to it. So let me rather say it is very much a
Okay.
average romantic comedy. And
Okay. Okay.
in that sense, I mean, it's set in Ireland. and it stars Emily Blunt and Jamie Dornan as the main protagonists. Whereby they're neighbors and they've lived next to each other for all of their lives. But Jamie Dornan is a little bit slow, so even though he's meant to, like, he knows he loves um, Emily Blunt's character, but he's just never pursued her for whatever reason. I think it's due to insecurity.
Yeah.
And like that part of the story was nice and in a sense to me quite relatable. But where it really drops the ball a bit is in the slapstick humor that it employs, complete with sounds. So like I distinctly
Oh,
remember there's this one piece where uh Dornan is in the fields with the cows and he's got his um that machine, that metal detector, and he's looking for the ring that he lost because he wants to propose to Emily Blunt's character with it. And there's literally a piece where he stands there, and as Emily looks up, there's that whole whoop, and he slips. And I'm just like, really, like
okay.
that is just so, it's stupid. It's that like dumb. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like dumb. Like you look at it like that's stupid. Was that necessary? You know.
Mm.
I will admit that the script is quite witty. It's very quick. It's also very Irish. So, if you don't really know the accent very well, you will struggle. You will struggle to hear what they're saying, first of all. And then secondly, they also speak in like riddles. So sometimes like you're watching, you're like, what is happening? What are they discussing really? Like they're speaking in
Okay.
code. It's not awful. It's not awful, but it's also very predictable. Like obviously there's another person that gets involved who's the third person in the love triangle. And of course, Emily Blunt's character needs to go with him to know that she definitely loves Jamie Dornan's character. And then of course, he has to be there so Jamie gets a kick up the ass to finally propose to
Of
her.
course.
The
It's
general
it's a bit predictable. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the general just. Now, one thing I have to add, I just have to, is Christopher Walken is in this film as well. Okay.
Yes.
And my gosh, does he have a bad Irish accent?
See, that's what gets me. Like Christopher, we all love Christopher Walken, but if you have an Irish film set in Ireland, why don't you employ actors that are Irish, like Gerard Butler, Saoirse Ronan, all
Okay.
of those?
So to answer this, and you are right, they should have just made the cast all Irish, okay, and just kept it in
Yeah.
Ireland. But what I think happened, like personally, while I was watching, I thought that maybe this was the plan all along. But I have a feeling that they cast Christopher Walken and then realized he couldn't do the accent and then changed the script afterwards. because
Oh.
because they explain it away eventually by the fact that he's actually American and then his nephew is coming to visit because there's a land dispute about who gets the land. And
And
of
now
course,
he needs
that
to be
nephew is the other
Irish.
love interest.
Oh, okay,
but
okay, okay,
but
okay.
it feels so not forced, but it just feels a little bit like, I really wonder if this was meant to be or if this was shoehorned in at the last minute.
Mm.
I guess we'll never know.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, Wild Mountain Time is a rom com, but it's an average rom com. It's not one I would say is a
I
must
was so
watch.
excited for it.
Yeah, I know, right? I enjoy
Mm.
romantic comedies. I won't lie,
Mm.
So it was disappointing. My mother loved it though, but I was just like rolling my eyes every 2 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Moving on to another film, and we actually watched this last night, so it's very fresh in my memory. Netflix's Stowaway. So this one actually it crept up on me. I wasn't really aware of it, to be honest. I saw a teaser for it on Twitter yesterday, actually, with a review which I didn't read because when I saw the teaser, I was like, "This looks very interesting," and it has a pretty incredible cast. It's very character driven, and what it's about essentially is how there is a stowaway on board a space vessel. To elaborate a little bit more on this, and this you eventually find out through the film, is that Earth has colonized Mars, and the people already are there. There's a colony on Mars, and now this new mission, they're sending through additional supplies. With a botanist and there's a doctor on board, and it's basically they're on their way to Mars. It's a 2-year voyage, and things don't go according to plan, as is generally the case in a film.
Yeah,
Now,
usually.
the cast are it's Toni Collette, Daniel Day Kim, and Anna Kendrick. They're the three main ones,
Mhm.
and then there's somebody who I haven't seen before, but by the name of Shamir Anderson, and he's absolutely incredible in this role. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. And the way it works is they've all departed Earth, and 12 hours later, through a really random, I mean, okay, let me rather say it's a very, very slow burn. The movie is very slow. All right. It's 2 hours, but it takes ages to really get going. And what happens is they finally discover that Shamir is on board, and somehow he was accidentally sealed into some panel in the roof. And, when they find him, he falls on the captain, so breaking her arm. And, it's this whole palaver of now there's four people on this ship when there should have been a mission with only three. And because he was in this roof, when he fell out, he ended up damaging a component, which totally makes that unit go offline. And that unit, of course, happens to be the life preserving unit. So without that, they now don't have enough oxygen for all of them to make it to Mars and so on and so forth. All right. So that's
Mhm.
technically where the drama starts picking up, where Tony Collette as the captain asks Daniel Day Kim to get out these their algae, which they're supposed to take to Mars to create atmosphere there to use on board the ship, because obviously they don't have oxygen scrubbers anymore. What I will say is that for the most part, they do a really good job of keeping it seemingly realistic, with the
Mhm.
exception of the gravity they have on board, which they explain away in terms of because the way the ship works is it works in a centrifugal. It's constantly spinning to create an artificial gravity. They don't really get into the in depth of how it's done, but you just have to assume that that's how they're doing it. That's how they're achieving it.
Mhm.
And from a character progression standpoint, I think the movie is very good. The acting is top notch from everybody involved, top notch. And given how the entire movie is led by these four people, I was sold on it. The way that they interacted with each other, it's just very good. Where it starts to fall apart a little bit, though, is in the way they behave. So, what inevitably happens is it comes down to the fact that they have to get rid of one of them because the botanist tries his algae experiment or whatever and it fails, and therefore there's only enough life support for three people. So then they
Okay.
need to essentially get rid of one, and then it's the whole psychological element of how who do you pick. And how do you rationalize killing somebody in order for the others to survive? And of course, it's an easy
Yeah.
pick at the grand scheme of things because the guy who was the stowaway shouldn't have been there to begin with. All right.
Mhm.
And the others are more qualified. It's a very interesting debate around the whole thing. And I believe that the way that it was acted is very, very well done. Now, of course, I'm hoping that wasn't too much of a spoiler. There are a few other things along the way, and I'll try not really say what happens. But the TLDR is that these super experienced characters, like I won't say whom, so it doesn't spoil what happens. The one character who literally teaches the other characters how to do the certain thing, all right, ends up not doing it in the film and ruining their chances of survival. And
Dumb
you're just looking
decisions.
at that and you're like, what? Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. And then there's also a scenario where while they're doing something to try and get additional life support going for all of them, that there's this other thing that has to happen. And I'm just like, there's no way that if we have the tech to go all the way to Mars, don't tell me that you only know when something is happening 5 minutes before it happens. You would
Yeah.
know like hours before this incident. I'm talking about solar flares, okay? I would like to imagine that you know hours in advance when they're coming. You can predict them.
We
I don't know.
even
Maybe
now
I'm
we know
wrong.
days in advance.
Look, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, right? But they use that as like one of the plot points, and I just like you just look at that and you're like, okay, you mean to tell me y'all went out of the cabin to do this without knowing this was a possibility? Like, what? Anyway, I don't want to. It's average. I, I I loved the characters. Like I would. The acting is exceptional. The premise is great, but there are a lot of dumb things along the way. Like, how did he get sealed in the compartment? You know, it's never explained. You're never told how he was sealed in this compartment. Like, he was literally sealed in, as in the captain had to get a screwdriver thing to screw out the screws for him to come out of the thing. And you're just like,
S-
how? It means that he was put there.
It's too convenient. That's the
Look, no,
thing.
what I mean is, if maybe he was knocked out and then his legs or whatever got caught in something and then he was like visibly stuck. Does that make sense? Instead of
Yeah,
being
yeah, yeah.
sealed in some compartment in the roof that you need a screwdriver to release,
Mhm.
like, how do you explain it? You can't. It would mean that he was maybe conked over the head and he was put there, which then leads to what the hell is going on? Why is he there? Who would do this to him? Do you get what I'm saying? Unless
This
he did
sounds
it
like it.
himself. Yeah, it's silly. I don't know. They don't
It
really.
should have been a whodunit, a murder mystery.
But you see, then it wouldn't have worked because they were in space. So then the whodunit would have happened on Earth. Anyway, that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to get at is, I didn't have any expectations going into the film. I enjoyed what I watched, but the nonsensical bits ruined it for me. And I think that a lot of people will feel very similarly. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's average. Like, I mean, I want to say watch it. Just for the space element, because we have very few really good things. Like, I still think that Sandra Bullock's Gravity was fantastic. I felt it was yes, sure, maybe obviously it's a little bit OTT, but I mean, her portrayal and her fear really came through, and the tension of her surviving was just fantastic. And they do a fairly good job of that in this film. Like, they do build up the tension, but it's a very, very slow burn. And then when the nonsensical things happen, you're like, oh, what a waste. You wasted
Mm.
my time getting to this point because they've done something stupid which they shouldn't have done, because you know that they're trained and they shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I understand, things happen in stressful situations and things, but it's like the most basic of things, and that is even I know through shows like The Expanse and real life astronauts, you always tether yourself. Always. So
That's rule
in
number
what
one.
world are you up out there in space and you're not tethering yourself to anything? Like, what are you
Yeah.
what? Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. Stowaway on Netflix, it's average. It's not the most, I expected more, I suppose, once it started. But yeah, that's it. Ed, I don't know if you have anything that you've watched recently or on the agenda, maybe. Um,
On the
'Cause
agenda is Mandalorian season 2 finally.
I need to
So
watch that as well, by the way. I haven't.
yeah,
So shall
I'm
we both
finally.
binge it in the next week and speak about it next week?
I should be done by next week. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will join you in that quest and we can actually have a nice discussion,
Mm.
because I do know. I mean, it's been spoiled who the cameo is at the
Yeah.
end, but like,
Yeah.
I don't
I've
care. I
also
want to
been
watch it.
spoiled.
I want
Yeah.
to see it. I want to see it happen. So that's not really one of those spoilers, because I mean, hello, this takes place before all the movies. So if you know the movies, you kind of know some of these characters are going to be there. You know?
I just Mike. Now that we've been spoiled on that, though, I wonder how that is supposed to factor into the movies. That doesn't make sense to me. So I
You
guess
mean with
season 3
with
will
with
answer that.
Mando?
Yeah, no, not with the
Ah.
character, the
Well,
cameo character.
let's see. Let's see. Because I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I don't know if Marvel, or rather Disney, is going to do the whole MCU thing, but I
No, I
do
doubt it.
know that Mandalorian is canon. So
Mhm.
whether or not they will directly link it to maybe like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, maybe
Or
at
maybe
some point,
Rebels,
or
something. We'll
Rebels.
see. We'll
Yes, yes.
see.
Look,
Yeah,
yes. I think Rebels is the most likely one, because as far as I understand,
yeah.
Ahsoka makes an appearance
She
in
does
Mando. Yeah.
mid-season. Yeah,
So yeah, let's see. Let's see how it goes.
yeah.
Let's see how it goes. Okay. Now, with that cartoon on the mind,
Mhm.
because cartoons be bay,
Yeah.
I need to introduce you all to the only cryptocurrency worth your money. Hello to the Charizard token.
Let's be real though. If this were a Jurassic Park crypto, you'd be
Listen,
all
listen,
about that.
listen, Edward. If there was like a Velociraptor token and a T, no, never mind, just a JP one, and buying into it funded the possibility of funding genetic research for this to happen, you can bet your sweet ass that all my expendable income would be
You'll be
invested
all
in
over
that.
that.
Okay, let me tell you. Right, so there is a Charizard token, just like a
Mhm.
Dogecoin, and we've previously spoken about non-fungible tokens in the past, and that kitty game, that's actually a currency, weirdly enough.
Yeah,
So anybody with the will and the tech savvy can create a token. How about a Giddle token, y'all?
apparently. Mm. I don't know if I want that.
You don't want to get
I
it
want
all
merch. I
all the
don't want
time.
tokens. No.
Oh, how about this? We'll sell our Giddle merch with NFTs
Yeah,
or
that
something like that.
works.
Anyway,
That's a compromise.
so the Charizard token, as the name implies, the name is based on Charizard, one of
Hmm.
the absolute best Pokemon from the original 151. One of my personal favorites, along with several others, which I won't give away because I've previously used for them as passwords. And by the way, I use a password randomizer now, so good luck, hackers. And that's not an
But you
invitation,
won't
by the way. Please,
give it
please
away though.
don't.
Boba
um,
Fett rocks 101.
so what's interesting about this, and I like this aspect about the coin, is sure at first glance you're like, this is a joke. There's no way this is real. No, no, no. It's 100% legit. So 38 million of these Charizard coins have been made. And what makes them even more unique is that every time there's a transaction, 5% of the transaction gets destroyed by Charizard's flame attack. And and when that happens, 2% is turned to ash. No reference to the character, just saying. And the other 3% gets distributed amongst everybody who owns a Charizard token. Why? Nobody knows. It's just, I
Okay.
guess, to make the token unique. And it's working because it is selling like hotcakes, and everybody wants a Charizard token now.
See, how does cryptocurrency work? Because how can they make this a thing and still have it be viable?
Do you know what I think that this burn technically is? I would almost say that's the transaction cost. So, with
But
every crypto transaction, there is a cost to it. And that's
but
because
even
when it gets written to the ledger, you lose a portion of the data, or rather, it gets transmuted, or I don't know, something to that effect.
okay, okay, weird.
Look, it is strange. It is strange, but I, it is what it is, right? And if we're not
Yeah,
knowledgeable enough on the situation, and anybody out there wants to inform us, by all means, please do. Until then,
yeah.
note that a Charizard token is amazeballs, and what they're doing with it as well is they're further going to be expanding upon it to whereby they want to make sort of digital, I don't know if it was tokens or cards based on the first 151 Pokemon, and they're going to sell them exclusively through NFTs and the Charizard token. And then
Okay, so
they want people to be able to trade them and stuff as well. So they're effectively taking the Pokemon trading card game to like the blockchain. How Pokemon's going to react to that, I don't know. But I guess we'll have to see.
that's weird.
because
That's
you,
all
because
I'm
remember,
saying.
we've spoken about NFTs before,
Yeah,
whereby an image of something, you can put an NFT to an image, therefore making that image unique.
original.
Now imagine doing that with cards, but whereby, like, okay, a digital card, but now understand a digital card is not the same as a digital image, right? Let's go with that. Let's go
Yes.
with that for
Yeah.
argument's sake. You could produce 10 of each of these 151 cards that they're going to make, and that's it. That literally increases the value because they can't, once it's been done, it's done. And that's actually how CryptoKitties works, because technically each CryptoKitty is its own NFT. So when you get
Yes.
one, it's completely unique to you, and that's why the kitties with like super cool genetic twists, like blue eyes or like pink irises or whatever, end up going for like millions of dollars, if you can believe that.
That's weird. I don't understand crypto at all. It's
Look, we shouldn't be ignorant, Ed. I think maybe for a future episode we should look at the basics and we can just talk about it. Not
We should
super in depth, of course, but we need to inform ourselves and our wonderful listeners.
yeah.
Yeah.
We should
Now,
invest in like 1% of this and see where it takes us. Is what you're
what
saying?
into Charizard, a Charizard token, and
Yeah,
see where we go with
yeah.
it.
I guess
No, look,
one
the thing is
Gettle
with
investment.
blockchain. Well, with when Gettle coin, okay, when
Yeah,
Gettle
like a
coin pops up,
single
we'll invest
crypto coin.
all our moolah into that.
That's
Look,
gonna be a lot
blockchain is
though.
very interesting, and I actually do own some cryptocurrencies, many of which have not done very well, but it doesn't matter. And I know others who've invested really well as well into like coins that keep escalating in price, like Ethereum and Bitcoin. But anyway, we'll talk about
Dogecoin.
that kind of strange language another time because now we're going to move on to talking about the language of love, or rather,
Yeah.
the language of communicating with people you love. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So this was just a very cool thing, like a study that I came across, and I guess it stands to reason that the longer you are with a partner, somebody that you love and you're sharing your life with, whether married or unmarried, whatever the case is, you will, I suppose, naturally adapt to the partner in much the same way the partner adapts to you.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be things like if your wife likes poached eggs, and who knows, maybe you start getting an inkling for poached
Post
eggs.
X are amazing though. Yeah.
Well, do you get what I'm saying, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that kind of a thing, and
Mannerisms and
yeah,
yeah.
thank you, especially mannerisms. It might be like the nod of a head, when you both disagree on something, especially with somebody that you're fighting with or somebody in the room, and you want to give them that look of that bitch.
Yeah,
It's
like
yeah,
someone's gonna
exactly,
die.
exactly. So this has been extensively studied apparently, but something that hasn't is textual communication. So this new study, which they've, well, not really, this new study which looks at the communications accommodations theory, which is actually what we were just talking about now, how people accommodate their methods of communication when they're in a significant relationship. They've now taken it a step further and they've looked at textual based communication, specifically via text messages, which is very different from speaking to somebody in person or talking over the phone or, face to face communication, even via
Yeah.
Zoom, right?
Yep.
And it's interesting because it exists. In other words, what actually ends up happening is specifically when they communicate with each other, the form of communication adapts and changes because the theory basically states that um, there's something called linguistic alignment. And the reason why it exists is because as people grow cognitively and emotionally closer together, it deepens their affiliation with each other, and therefore they have this like common ground and common understanding, and they know what they mean when they say things. And
Yeah.
when that happens, there's a less chance for miscommunication because we all know that textual communication doesn't have nuance. You can't tell if
Yep.
somebody's angry with you or upset with you or whatever the case is when they're sending a message. Like somebody could say something jokingly and you could be offended because you think that they're being rude, but they're not. Now, what this does is what they've done is they've looked into this textual communication and they've realized that through the bonds of a relationship, and I suppose it makes sense at the end of the day, people learn to communicate with those that they love in a very specific and a unique way so as to ensure that the person that they're communicating with, their partner, doesn't read into it in a negative way, or rather doesn't read things into it that are not necessarily there. Isn't
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
interesting? You
Yeah.
know?
It's actually amazing. It comes down to the fact that basically you're on the same page. I guess that's the
Yes,
best way
that's
to
yeah,
describe it.
yeah.
And yeah, you literally you pick up little things, little differences in the way they speak, or well, text, I guess. Um, that basically makes you feel certain things. Like I
Yeah.
know when you, Hans, are a bit upset or frustrated because I know the way you text when you are frustrated, and I
Mm.
think it goes the same way for everyone. Like friends and loved ones and all of those. You I don't I don't text to you exactly the same way I will text to, let's say, Marianne. And
Oh,
it's
of course
it's
not. That's a
weird
different
because
relationship.
and that's a totally different way of texting as
Mm.
well. It's fascinating, to be fair. Yeah.
Look, I'm glad you brought
Mm.
up other relationships because, as a matter of fact, I know I went in with love language, but
Hmm.
the study looked at specifically fine the language between romantic partners from a text-based perspective, but it
Yeah.
can be applied to basically any relationship. And as Edward is saying
Yeah.
now, especially with people you communicate with often, like friends and family, you can tell if they're having a bad day or a good day, or if they're upset with you,
Mm.
or if something's not right, given how they normally communicate with you. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note that the normal means of communication and how we adapt is filtering through our technology.
That's super
You
cool.
know. Now that leads me on to something else, and that is Edward. When
Yeah.
you're out and about in the world, which I guess suppose none of us ever are anymore, but you know how sometimes,
I'm never anywhere.
like let's say you're driving or whatever, and you see
Yeah.
a yellow buggy, not a buggy, like a yellow beetle, right?
Yep.
And you're like, oh, there's a yellow beetle, and then you keep seeing a yellow beetle for like days on end, like it
See,
keeps popping up.
I know what you wrote in the notes. Okay. I used to call this the rule of coincidence.
Ah.
Now, since I've seen what you wrote in the notes, I actually went and Googled the rule of coincidence. It's not what I thought it is at all. Um, and it's fascinating because suddenly you'll see this everywhere.
Yes.
Like I think I mentioned to you in a few episodes back that I watched Racing Stripes
Yes.
in my youth, and I saw the movie is all about the zebra, and then suddenly I saw zebras everywhere on trucks, on billboards. I saw live zebras. That is this, I
Well,
guess.
Edward, this has a name. Technically,
Okay.
there are two names, but the first name that was recorded for this phenomenon is called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon.
Mm.
Technically, today there is another term for it, and it goes by frequency illusion. And you might be looking at this and thinking to yourself, is it really an illusion though? Because I would like to think that for some of you out there who listen to Gittel, is that sometimes you'll listen to us talk about something, and then lo and behold, in your weeks ahead, oh, you'll see or hear about the things we talk about randomly, and you'll be like, how so? How is this? And that's where why Edward Googled coincidence.
Yes.
How does this serendipitous, means of bumping into things that you now have discovered happen?
Is it magic?
Thank you. Yes, like
Yeah.
is it a deity? Like, am I being controlled? Is there something more? Is it intuition? Now, I would like to believe in the fact that intuition exists because
Mhm.
I have felt for myself that it has saved me in the past, for lack of a better term or expression. And it's very difficult to really discuss what intuition is other than a feeling. Sometimes you get a
A
feeling about
gut
something.
feeling.
Yes, that,
Yeah.
that that gut feel, that gut feel. Well, science technically says no, that
Of course,
that
science says no.
that no,
Always.
that's not what it actually is, and that in sense, and that rather this frequency illusion bears some similarity to something called synchronicity, and
Mhm.
that is where you know you think you something happens, and then you attribute like meaningful coincidence to it, kind of like how you'll be thinking of somebody, and then the phone will ring and it's them.
Mm.
You see? So that has its own terminology, and that's called synchronicity, which I thought was fantastic because there's actually a movie on Netflix called Synchronicity. Stay tuned for next week's review.
Suddenly you watch what all good
Suddenly I'm
things,
like, I
yeah.
have to watch this now and see if it actually comes down to what
I
they're
know
really
that
talking about
feeling.
here.
Yep.
You know? So, and again, that synchronicity is linked to what you would say your gut feel or your intuition or whatever the case is. So
Yeah.
the reason why science says that's not the case is because you can't measure that. So therefore, it's inherently flawed because an intuitive feeling comes and goes, and it's not repeatable. That's why
Mm.
science is like, nah, can't be. Um, More so, what they say is that it has to do with the brain and how the brain over time has been not been developed, but how we all know the brain is incredible, right? And
Yeah.
it is very much attuned to learning. And because of that, it's also attuned to picking up patterns. So, more so, what science says, specifically with this Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, is that your brain is picking up patterns that it would normally not see. Or rather,
Ignore.
not see is not correct. Ignore is the right term. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's more like, so apparently, according to what they say about this, is that every day your brain processes thousands and thousands and thousands of patterns. But every now and again, a mundane one like a yellow beetle, and when I say beetle, I'm talking about the car, not necessarily a beetle that flies around.
Yeah.
You'll see one, and because you've seen one, every time now your brain is looking for things that are yellow because that randomly, when you probably saw it, you're like, oh, I haven't seen a beetle in so long. Oh, what an interesting color. Now that then sits there in your mind. And then all of a sudden you'll start seeing more yellow beetles. And that's purely because your brain is now spotting a pattern. It's being like, okay, you've seen one. Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Look
That's
at
cool.
that. Where normally you would filter it out and you wouldn't normally even bother looking at a yellow beetle driving around in much the same way how Edward has been seeing racing stripes or zebra stripes everywhere,
Zebras. Yeah.
where normally that would be blotted out. You wouldn't really care about a zebra stripe because you know what it is. You've seen many before, so why is it important now? It's only important because he watched a film which is in his recent memory and now his brain was attuned to how that movie made you feel, and
That's
therefore
cool.
it spotted other patterns. And that is also part of it. The fact that you get enjoyment from seeing patterns. It's that whole like reward system. When you see a pattern, you're like, oh, and you feel good. So therefore the brain is like more feel good, more feel good, you know?
More feel good.
More feel good. Very, very Hulk-esque there.
Yeah.
And it's really just incredibly a very interesting phenomenon. And the scientists also went on to say that it's further amplified by something called the recency effect. And again, it's exactly what we've just discussed now. How Edward saw a movie because the movie was recent, therefore him seeing these patterns were amplified. You see?
Mm.
It's a really cool thing, and I've personally always wanted to know what it was called, and now I know. It's the frequency illusion or the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. So now you know, y'all. If y'all are out there one day and you see this thing, or rather, let's say you're listening to a fantastic episode of Gettle, and like now, let's say we're talking about this frequency illusion. Now, let us know if even in the next month or so, somebody's like frequency and illusion, or talks about how they keep seeing things. Now you know, you can be like, oh, that's the frequency illusion. You know?
Or if anything, this should subconsciously make you notice more patterns around you, because it's
Maybe.
a suggestion.
Listen. There's
And
no
there
no
is a
doubt,
term for that as well.
no doubt, y'all must be seeing Pokemon in Jurassic Park all the time because that's like
Yeah.
90% of what we speak about. You know.
It's Pokemon in Jurassic Park.
Oh, and something else we always like speaking about is coffee. Hey, Ed?
Coffee, yes. And on that note, we also have a few coffee topics.
Actually, we
I want
have
to speak about
a
today.
lot of coffee topics. So I'm quite interested to see where Edward is going to go with this because y'all know we be coffee lovers.
And on the topic of loving your coffee, have you noticed that the coffee hasn't been affecting you as easily?
Sacrilege. How
Once?
dare you? How dare you, Edward? How dare you speak of this divine fluid in such a way? How dare you say that it no longer impacts my life in a positive manner? How dare you insinuate? I'm sorry, my coffee.
It
Forget he
it
said
impacts it.
that.
It's beautiful. Okay, I get that.
No,
Shh,
yeah,
I get that.
I
But,
actually,
but
I was thinking about that, and I think the only time that's happened to me in the past. So let me give you a little bit of like my coffee background, right? No, coffee
Mhm.
background, like I'm some connoisseur. Please, I'm just an
It
espresso bitch.
sounds
Okay.
amazing. Go on.
I've always enjoyed it, and like most people, I started off with. Oh, I can't believe I'm admitting this, but the Nestle's, the Nestle Golds, that kind of thing. Oh, anyway.
Haven't we all?
So then from there, we moved on to the plunger coffees. Where you actually get the grounds and you taste that and the drip coffee, and it's just so delicious. And then from there, moved on to real beans and a machine that grinds them, so it's always fresh. And then, of course, from there, I'm now living that bougie Nespresso lifestyle, and I only use the capsules. I'm sorry, the environment, but hey,
Yeah.
they are recycled. Anyway, um, what I'm trying to get at is that what I did notice before drinking Nespresso is how I would get a little bit bored of my coffee. And that's purely because
Mm,
it was always the same flavor. Now, I say this because I am sensitive to flavors. I can tell when a coffee is flavored. I can tell when there's something different with it or unique to it. Some people can't. They unfortunately don't have that. It's not even a skill. They just don't have that ability to it. And Edward, you're one of them a little bit, just a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just a little bit. Um,
so,
but
so
now the
yeah, hold on. So what I mean by that is that yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, there have been times in the past where my coffee, I don't want to say got boring, but like where I was a bit like, I need a new flavor. However, that doesn't happen anymore because I live the Nespresso lifestyle, and on average, I have 10 flavors at my disposal, so I can always pick and choose, and I have like
okay,
3 or 4 flavors a day. Anyway, back to.
okay, so what I'm getting at is the fact that you're not getting the same energy kick from it anymore,
Oh
are
gosh,
you?
you made me talk about flavors and going on about how.
You kept saying, "Let me finish," so I let you finish.
Okay.
Um,
Um, I don't. Hmm. No, I don't think so. I think it's because although I drink a lot of coffee,
mm, yeah,
I don't. I still feel it. I think
yeah,
it's because again, I think this is because I drink so many different kinds of flavors of Nespresso that the caffeine intake is never the same. That's what I think.
yeah.
And
That's
and I can tell the difference. Just as a quick example is there's this one, and I've forgotten the name. How can I forget the name? It's like my favorite one. But there's this red one, this red Nespresso capsule, and I love drinking 2 of those at a time because, good golly, do I feel that anxiety afterwards. It's so good.
see,
Whereas,
and that's perfect. See, I thought you were going to lead into that fact, because the thing is, you are essentially doing so. So, for a bit of context, I found this guide on how to reset your body into getting the same kick from coffee that it used to in the
mm,
past.
mm.
And what you're doing is essentially one of these points, which is hacking your body
by,
into
by
thinking
by
it's
keeping it
different.
variable, by making sure that the
Yes,
the caffeine is not the same with every mug.
exactly, exactly. So this guide it talks about
Oh,
essentially not
I just I just
being
I just thought of something. Maybe
what
that's why Nespresso is so popular. They know the
maybe
keys to keeping your caffeine addiction fresh.
different coffee variances. Yeah, that could very well be true.
My mind has just exploded. Anyway, Edward,
Yeah,
please
it's
carry on.
actually.
I'm telling you now, they have done research into this and they know this.
Oh, of
That's
course
why
they
they
have.
have like 40 flavors. Or, oh my goodness.
40
My
flavors with
goodness.
different varying coffee degrees. Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's
Oh my
very, very,
gosh,
very
Edward.
much the truth.
I know it's weird to get
And
goosies about this, but I'm just like, this monopoly company owned by Nestle, by the way, which is one of the world's biggest polluters. Anyway, we'll get back to that
yep,
just now.
that's also a thing. Way to put a damper on that one. Um, so essentially, yeah, you're hacking your body with varying degrees of caffeine at varying times, which is very, very good. Um, for many people, though, this is not the case. So
Like you.
that they like, yeah, it used to be me. I have to be honest. Coffee didn't do anything for me at all, even though I love the flavor. Until I started drinking Nespresso, and you drink Nespresso, I drink Lore capsules. For me, Nespresso doesn't taste as good as I think Lore does. But it comes down to the same fact.
For those
It's
of you who
probably
are
owned
not
by
watching the
Nestle as
video, I'm
well.
pulling a disgusted face of how dare you.
Of course, he is. It's probably owned by Nestle as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it also comes down to different flavors, different variations.
Actually, okay, I
Um,
know we're digressing here, but that
yeah,
interests me because it means that I might try law because Edward and
mm,
I have previously spoken about several different coffee capsules, many of which are locally
yeah,
available. One of which is Turbidor. Um,
yeah.
I recently bought a new one called the salted caramel. Super disappointing. Just don't bother. But actually, to be
I
honest
just
with you,
had one
I
actually,
found
and
their things to be mostly mediocre, especially when compared
yeah,
to
it's
Nespresso now.
average.
Just from
Hmm.
I find that it's very like watered down in comparison.
Mm.
little things like that, like the taste is not as good. So I will try law.
Yeah,
I will
just buy
see.
a sleeve or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see how it goes.
Um,
Anyway,
but my favorite is the blue one. I forgot what it's called, so try that one, and
okay,
then the purple one because that's a strong one.
okay.
Anyway, we digress. So this guide, it talks about how you can how you can keep your kick or get it back. Now, as Hansel and I said, it's all about varying. For those of you who really don't feel anything anymore, for those of you who drink like 10 cups a day, the best bet is to just quit cold turkey, or alternatively to work it down slowly. According to this guide, you might get your kickback before you even stop drinking it at all. For those who drink a cold turkey, they say 8 days should reset your body totally,
Oh, that's not so bad.
completely.
So it's only like a week
A week, yeah.
without
So
coffee.
imagine going a week without coffee and then suddenly getting a buzz by a single cup, Um, and that's
That's
it.
not bad
Hans
at
and I
all. I
basically
mean,
covered it all.
no, but see,
Keep it varied.
so okay,
That's the point.
so this is our suggestion. Okay, is that you need to
Yeah.
be bougie and you need to
Yes,
you
yeah,
need
just
to you need to join the coffee capsule lifestyle, but make sure you recycle. If you do, at least do your small part to attempting to curb
Yep.
the environmental damage from products that are like single-use plastics. Now, the nice thing with a lot of
Yeah.
these capsules is that most of them are biodegradable, so good job. Unless, of course, they have the aluminium foil top, in which case you must peel that off. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that just yet. Um, it's so interesting to me because I had no idea I was even
Yeah.
doing that, Edward, and now it makes sense as to
Yeah.
why I'm always enjoying my coffee, because
Yeah.
it's
You're
always
always
different, and why the enjoyment hasn't. You know,
gone
you
away.
see, I initially thought it was the taste. So that's why I was talking to you about taste so much just now.
Mhm.
Is very much because I almost got bored of the taste, but I suppose what was actually happening was I wasn't bored of the taste because coffee always tastes delicious. I wasn't getting the same kick I was probably getting from drinking the same ground up beans for like a week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So
longer?
in a way, your body was forcing you to switch it up,
Yes.
because you there are different flavors. So that's your brain saying, "Hey, maybe just switch it up,
It's
get a new
fascinating to me. It's
flavor."
fascinating. Look, so
Yeah.
for those of you who are listening, I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but I'm actually caffeine sensitive, and a very good friend of mine from the US recently told me about how if I drink a light roast, I will have more of um a caffeine more of a poor caffeine experience because there's more caffeine in light roasts than there are in
Yes.
dark roasts, and I didn't know that.
Mhm.
And when I thought about it, I realized that's actually very true because in the past, when I would go to a Starbucks and order a light roast, I would have a bad headache afterwards after drinking.
Mhm.
Okay, granted, it was like a venti, but regardless, I would have like a headache an hour later, which I would normally never have if I normally drink dark coffee. A more dark ground coffee. Anyway, very interesting. Thank you for this.
Mm.
I love the fact that I've been keeping it fresh without even realizing it, purely because I
Exactly.
live a life of variety.
But um, now that's the other thing. Because you've been drinking so much coffee, Hans, do you know that you've been keeping yourself probably mega
it
healthy
would.
without even
Do you
exercising
know why I drink so much coffee?
because you love it?
I mean, that aside,
Okay.
it actually is for me a health thing.
Okay.
So I'm loath to admit it, but I suffer from gout. For me, it's very much genetic, so it's not from poor eating or anything like that. My body
Mhm.
doesn't process the uric acid the way that it's supposed to, and I've known for about what 6-7 years now. So I'm on meds for it and everything. Anyway, thing is, coffee is known to assist with preventing gout attacks.
That's amazing to know because I did not know that.
Now,
I
of course, bear in mind now, the studies are for naked coffee, and of course,
uh
without sugar, naturally.
yeah.
I do admittedly drink mine with coconut milk, but I also do enjoy black coffee as is. And the thing is, black
Black coffee is
coffee,
amazing.
just as is, with the antioxidants that it has, is actually really, really good for you. And I think this is
Yeah.
what you were gonna. This is where you're going to, right?
In a way, yes. Like I drink my coffee totally black and without sugar and milk,
Mm.
especially for the last few months. And that's exactly like you mentioning gout now is beautiful to me because I did not know that, and it's a good thing. Because another thing I literally just the day before yesterday found out is
Mm.
that it's also good for prostate cancer.
Yes,
Um,
yes, you're
in
right.
in in essence, it prevents prostate cancer.
Oh, no
Um,
wonder the doctor said I was good and healthy.
yeah, like feel it up, and it feels good. Um, on a separate note, it's good to get yourself checked.
Please,
Anyway,
please, gentlemen, if you're 30 plus,
yes,
it is time.
twice a year is
No,
usually the
that's too much. It's
recommendation.
once a year.
30 plus, twice a year.
No, once a year.
That's what I've been
When you
told.
when you get to over 40, then maybe, depending on if you have
Maybe,
issues or not. But
maybe,
once a year
maybe
is
my doctor
generally
is
good.
just
Your doctor, Edward,
he just likes that
likes
shit.
to.
Like to feel that nub.
Well, actually, they don't even do that
Um,
anymore. You know, it's all blood tests now.
they
So
well, oh no, I had a full body exam last year. I did not go this year yet, by the
Edward,
way.
when you say full body, are you talking about prostate stimulation or just?
No, I had all the checks, including feeling up there.
Why? It's literally a blood
That was
test.
I don't know. That was last year.
Or rather,
Maybe this year will
you
be
know what?
different.
I'll give you the urologist that helped me because he actually he scanned it with a like I want to say when people are pregnant, they go for that.
Oh yeah,
It's the
a
same thing,
sonar.
and they do it on your pelvis, and they can look at it that way.
Oh,
You need to
that's
come to the 21st century,
fascinating.
Edward. Ain't nobody need to be feeling up there.
I have. I'm fine with the feels. Any,
Back to coffee, keeping
anyway,
you
so
healthy.
yes, keep your prostate healthy. So, in findings published in the BMJ Open, scientists found that. Now, when I say scientists, I mean they studied 16 different. They analyzed 16 different studies
Wow.
from over 1 million subjects,
A
and they
million?
found
Are
that
you sure? That is
yeah,
huge.
over
Wow.
1 million adult men were
Wow.
analyzed in 16 different studies. It should be mentioned.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they found that those who drank coffee were less likely to get prostate cancer, and significantly so as well. Um, uh, what I found fascinating about this, especially, is that people drink coffee without even noticing it, obviously, and without even knowing the benefits of coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, in many of these men, they actually were told, okay, this is what you're going to do, and half of them, a good 100,000 or so, well, I say 100 thousands, were given what is it called? So kind of like a placebo. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
the
All right.
word for it
Oh,
in
yeah, because
terms of
you have to have a
food.
control and then you have to have the test. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And they found that those given the real thing had a 12 to 16% lower risk
That
of
is
getting
substantial.
prostate cancer. Yeah,
Wow.
and that's fatal prostate cancer.
Wow.
Above I think it was 30% otherwise. But it should be noticed that this is all just in correlation of
Look, that's a
it
very
was not
important
studied
distinction to make, eh? Yeah.
exactly because it was not studied whether these men were healthy men, they were gymming, they were eating healthy. But it's good to know that it affects the prostate, and it
You,
on top of gout, Alzheimer's, we now have prostate cancer to thank coffee as
I'm
well for as
curious now
well.
with the study. Did they
Mm.
mention how they were supposed to drink it? Like, did it have to be
Um,
black, or could they drink it the way that they wanted to?
I did not. I can't remember if they were supposed to drink it a special way, but I know they were given Italian-based coffees, so that's
Okay,
basically espressos.
I
Um,
ask because you mentioned here how it only looked at the fact that they were taking coffee, not their lifestyle
yeah,
and other factors which could contribute to why they were healthier in general. You
yeah,
see?
yeah.
Because I would imagine that somebody who's having a Starbucks every day with all the
Mm.
sugar and the well,
See, that
specifically the
might
sugar
influence it
more than anything
differently.
else would be
Mm.
more of a negative impact than somebody who possibly, let's say, drinks a espresso with a little bit of coconut oil, for example.
That's the thing.
You see?
And I think the reason they make special note that this is only a correlation kind of analysis is because there were 16 studies,
Mm.
and I think the scientists that analyzed all of these studies, they weren't in charge of how the coffee was induced or injected and taken. So yeah,
That's
I don't know
amazing.
to be
That that's
to
that's
answer
that's
your
no,
question.
but that's either way. Even if it's just a correlation, the fact
Mhm.
is there is a link. In other words,
Yeah,
I mean, it just means that all of these people had coffee, or they were given this whatever Italian coffee to drink, and the results
yeah.
showed a correlation regardless of lifestyle. That is still, to me, significant.
It's
All the more
fascinating to
reason
me.
why I should keep drinking coffee. Hey, Edward, we should all keep
Yeah,
drinking
keep
coffee.
that bougie
And it makes
life.
the coffee purchases I made yesterday, again, all the more worthwhile.
Exactly. Because when you make a coffee purchase, you make a coffee purchase. So compared to
I had
me,
to.
so
I
there's
needed some
that.
decaf. It's funny, like, because we were talking about
Oh, I don't
caffeine
drink
just now,
decaf.
about keeping
Mm.
you healthy. So I've mentioned to you before how I can be caffeine sensitive. So what I do
Hmm.
because I really don't sleep very well, as Edward knows. Although I've been sleeping fairly decently, but just in general to make sure that I'm not contributing to not sleeping poorly, is I will in the evenings prefer to drink a decaf just for the sake of ensuring that I'm giving myself the best possible means of falling asleep. I say that though, and for the last couple of nights, I've only had normal coffee at like 9 o'clock. And I've been sleeping fine. So
That's basically me. So yeah, maybe you're just getting back into rhythm. Like
maybe,
in the past.
maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. So tell me,
that's the hope
are we
anyway.
still speaking more about prostate health here, or
Still,
still okay? Because
yes,
Edward's fascinating facts are all kind of merging with one another, which is really great.
yes. All of my
About
points
how
basically go
coffee
into
keeps
one.
you healthy, but also because of the whole prostate thing. But now he actually has a lot of really great facts to help you with
Yes.
keeping your prostate healthy. And I think what we're going to
Yeah.
do
So.
before Edward just
Mhm.
begins is NSFW. Just so that we can really talk about
Just
it
in
with
case.
just that little, that little.
Just. So
No, look, I mean,
one of
Edward, no, I
those.
have to though, because you do know that I mean, because we've been speaking about coffee now, and you're speaking about prostate, and we're all
Prostates. Yeah.
going with this, and how coffee is often seen as an aphrodisiac, especially
Yeah, it
caffeine.
is.
You know,
Yep.
so it's just interesting that this is where we're going. I mean, I don't know if you knew, and I just want to just interject this quickly, just before you begin your part there quickly, is how they've actually done studies on rats with caffeine and how it actually increases
Mhm.
female libido. And now they
Yeah.
want to do more studies in terms of how that translates to the human libido.
Yeah.
So take that with a grain of salt for now, until maybe at a later
Yeah.
stage. But
I've actually been recommended this very post you just linked
oh,
to, and
really?
yeah, it's fascinating. And yeah, I did know it's
Is it
linked to
is it
libido, but
are you seeing patterns, Edward? Somebody.
I'm seeing patterns.
I'm telling you, we're going to see so many prostate things now going forward. Oh, caffeine and prostate.
Oh, you have no idea. Listen, half of this, usually it's only one point I find, and then the rest just comes because I keep noticing more. Um,
Okay. Look, so we've essentially delved into the health benefits and how good it is, and that incredible
yes.
study with how it reduced it by like 16% or whatever. But now we
Yeah.
must talk about, other than, so coffee aside, right? So let's push, because like we've spoken about that more than enough now, right?
Mhm.
What are the other? Because I see you've written quite a lot of cool things here about keeping
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
healthy. So caffeine and coffee aside, which we know is glorious, nectar of the gods. What else is there to make sure, other than getting checked, of course, which is very important? What else can we do?
Mhm.
Ed, tell us.
Well, I, on top of all that, it's not so much things you can do. Well, there are things you can do as
Oh,
well,
of course, there are things you can do.
like jerking off is one, and having lots of sex.
With
The way
protection.
jerking off is the main. Yeah, with or without, it
No,
depends on.
with,
I guess
all the time.
if you're with your wife, you don't need to have protection.
Unless you want children.
Um, Yeah,
unless you don't
that's
want
the
any
thing.
more children.
No, then you get snapped. The reason jerking off is mentioned as the main thing here is because sex isn't available as much as your hands are most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you like Chuck Bass or something from Gossip Girl, I guess.
Even then, okay,
Um,
Blair gave him lots of bat. Okay, so he had to look elsewhere.
yeah, at the
So
end there, they actually.
okay, let me tell you. I know you're bringing the Gossip Girl in here. Let me tell you, they also had to go to Mrs. Palmer and her five maids or whatever.
Probably, especially someone like Chuck. So jerking off is one big thing you can do to keep
Actually,
your
it's
prostate
one of
healthy
the best.
because
Yeah,
but because continually cycling sperm is actually a beautiful way to keep your prostate healthy because it keeps working in a sense. To paraphrase what I've written there.
it's like a
Another thing you
car
can
and
do.
getting an oil change, except you should do this
Yeah,
oil change daily
exactly. It's actually a very good thing to ejaculate at least once a day, whether that's by sex or jerking off or whatever.
or both.
Um, Another thing you can or both. Another thing you can do is eating well, and one of those types of eating.
Before you go further than that, there's a really interesting stat here that you have to mention. Okay, it says here, 5 or more times per week, y'all. Okay,
Yeah, that's once a day. That's literally once
yeah,
a
but I
day.
mean,
So,
give people a break, okay? so,
so what you're
so
saying
Monday
is,
to Fridays and Saturday and Sunday you can rest.
okay, that means on Tuesday and Thursday you go twice. Okay, if you're gonna give yourself a rest on
Oh
Saturday
gosh,
and Sunday.
but
I don't know if it works like
no,
that. Though.
but the interesting thing here that I'm reading in your note here is that if you are to do that, so 5 or more
Yeah.
times a week, right? It
Yeah.
results in a 34% less. Your chance of
Likely
developing
rate.
prostate cancer are 34% less by the age of 70.
Yeah.
That,
Yep.
Edward, that is huge. That is not
Yeah.
that is significant. So
It's
if y'all drink coffee and masturbate every day, you'll be golden.
you're fine. In many
No
more senses
wonder
than
he was
just the
so
one.
happy with mine when I went.
Okay, that's the drum. That's the drum right there.
But
but on top of that, you also eat lots of healthy foods and with lots of spices, Hans.
oh, I love spices, chilies
Yes.
and things like that. Yeah,
Exactly.
that
And
helps.
the thing is, that is literally helps. According to research from the holistic urology at Columbia, they literally mention that eating spice, especially many spices. I don't know which. I did make a note,
So
but I forgot.
you've got it's ginger, oregano, rosemary,
There we
and
go.
green tea. There
That's
ain't
it.
no
That's it.
chilies here, but goodness knows I ate more than enough ginger and garlic. 'Cause
You
garlic
have lots of
is
ginger
life.
and garlic. Also, it's not written here, but garlic is one of them.
Also, just to give you another stat, is that by
Yeah.
consuming these herbs and spices, you actually can reduce prostate cancer cell growth by 78%.
That's what I was getting
That
at. Yeah.
is
Because
huge.
all of these spices, including garlic, but that's not really a spice, but it's also included because I'm going to speak about that now.
But that's
they
just
all
wait, sorry, I know.
inhibit.
So I'm just thinking, if you
Yeah.
were to grate ginger into your coffee every day,
Oh gosh, no.
why? It would be like
I'll grate that into my tea
I've
every
had
day, not
ginger
my
tea.
coffee.
Why not? We could give. You know what? I will give this a try this week, and I'll let you know
Okay.
if ginger coffee is
Okay.
good or bad. How does that sound?
Okay, but then you need coffee that's not flavored, you know?
No, I mean, look, when I say flavored, I mean Nespresso is not flavored, but they taste different depending on where the beans come from. So, like,
They're infused.
no, they're not infused. Well, at least not infused
Aren't
in the
they?
way that everybody else does it. So, like, like that salted caramel one we were
course.
talking about, like that tastes artificial, But like
Yeah.
Nespresso has, like, for example, they've got like a Cape Town variant, which tastes uniquely different to the Tokyo variant, but not because of added flavors, just because the beans are from different locations. So obviously they taste different,
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, well, let me know then. Maybe
So
that's
yeah,
the thing I'll start doing
I'll
if it's good.
maybe take one of the more the non. So I mean, like not chocolate or vanilla or something. Just like one of the ones that's
Yeah,
actually like from somewhere in the world. One that I enjoy.
somewhere like
Actually,
Italian Arabica
I'll
or
take the
something.
no, I'll take the ristretto because that's generally like a nice
That's the red
baseline.
one.
No, that's the black one. It's a very
Oh,
nice
that's the red one
baseline.
in
It's
lore.
that's it's strong. It's a good baseline. If I mix ginger into that, of course, without milk, I would imagine. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, I
Y'all,
think
we're
so.
helping y'all here. So so basically,
Yeah,
our recommendation is ginger coffee and then masturbate afterwards, and you'll be free from prostate cancer.
you'll be amazing. Yeah, and you also have lots of
Please
energy.
note, this is not real
Uh,
health advice.
we are not doctors. Um,
Fine, this is not medical recommendations or whatever, but I actually see here. I know we're talking about like spices and stuff like that. The doctors have given their concoction a name. It's called
well, I
Zyflamend. And here
yeah,
I was thinking we're gonna have Hans Ed 01 or something, which is gonna be the coffee and the ginger.
I mean, I doubt that much. Yeah, the thing, cyclamen is essentially just a concoction, a medical concoction. If you click on the link that
Yeah.
we won't be posting in the show notes, but that I put there, it literally takes you to a bottle of pills called Zyflamend you
But
can
it's
buy.
just what? Just
Um,
the herbs and spices.
that's literally all it is.
Hmm.
And it's said to inhibit COX-2 proteins, which is essentially the same proteins that make any disease work in your body.
They
Um,
called it Cox 2.
yeah, a few episodes back, well, at the beginning of the COVID episodes, we spoke about this COX-2 protein, which is
Okay.
it looks like a little ball if you look at Google Images or whatever, with lots of holes. Now, those
Yes.
holes are difficult to cover by normal inhibitors such as this, which is why the protein, the COVID vaccinations, they are made to essentially they are
Well,
thinner in
the
substance, I
mRNA ones, right?
guess.
Not the other ones.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that they essentially go into those holes and help destroy them, which is happening.
So wait.
Yeah,
So you're saying that this? Okay, I just love the word Zyflamend, but essentially these herbs and spices and things actually contribute towards that. That's
yeah.
they help inhibit
It
that
help.
activity. That's so.
Yes.
Wouldn't that? I mean, again, we're not medical experts, so please, this is not. Don't consider
Mm-hmm.
this as medical advice at all. But then, wouldn't it then stand to reason that taking these things
Mm-hmm.
in general would be good for you? I
I would
mean,
think
I would
so,
think so. Yeah.
because like green tea, it's just generally good for you. I drink a few cups a week, just to cleanse, and it keeps you healthy. It's like
So there we go. So if
I don't
if
know.
if we continued, so there we go. That rather than okay, I'm still going to do the whole ginger coffee thing, but what I'm getting at is have your coffee every day, but maybe have at least one green tea every day as well with some ginger. That sounds like a plan. Hey,
Yeah,
just add it
it
to your
works.
regimen.
Yeah, like I would easily grate some ginger into my green tea. I think that's a good
Yes,
thing. Yeah.
yes. And
Mm.
does it help in any other way with your peen? You're making it bigger, hopefully not smaller.
Um, I don't know about bigger or smaller in terms of green tea, but I do know on that topic. Um, on well, you've mentioned Earth Day and keeping the Earth healthy a lot
Yes, yes.
throughout this episode, and for good reason because it's just number one, it's very good to do so,
Well, I mean,
and
we
number
only have
two,
one
it's
planet, right?
exactly, and it's been Earth Day recently, or it's coming. I forgot the
By
date.
the time this airs, it
Um,
would have passed. So we can just talk
yeah,
about it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So and I found a small post that basically just it mentions shrinking penises, okay, and for
Okay,
the
but legit making them smaller, or like
yes.
you've got into the water and it's really cold small.
Oh no, like legit evolutionary smaller.
Y'all.
Um,
If there was ever a problem we need to combat.
it's
Okay,
this.
wait. Let's talk about it first before we get to that. Okay.
Okay, so I found this intriguing little post about a Dr. Shayna Swan
Okay.
who published a new book called. It doesn't matter what the book is called. What matters is the fact that what she published is essentially saying that stuff called phthalates, which is an amazing
They're
word
in
I
everything.
love.
I've heard of that
Th-
before. Yeah, they're in everything.
yes, especially in the plastics we have all around us. That's the biggest use of the
Oh
phthalates.
man.
They are literally infecting our bodies in such a way that our children and our fertility rates are getting impacted.
But they're giving
Um,
everybody smaller penises, y'all.
yes, like
Ladies, you should be
she's
concerned as well.
she's noticed that penises from babies born recently um, um, exhibiting proof of phthalates in the blood system
Yeah, yeah.
are actually notably smaller than penises of men born years ago, when phthalates were not
As
uh,
prevalent.
as prevalent. That thank you. And yeah, it's also
Okay, but
apparently impacting fertility rates,
um
which is
but
bad.
I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Did they do a long-term study at all? Meaning, sure, maybe it's smaller at birth, but is it smaller as a matured adult?
Um, I don't know how long term the studies were, but one of the studies comes from 2017, so it's long ago. It's
Yeah.
just mentioned in the book. It did take, I think, four decades of studies, of human subjects, not
Mm.
studies, in consideration. And I think 175 human adults were studied. Um, I think so.
Well, okay,
I can't
okay.
remember the
You
notes.
said
I
yeah,
can't remember the
over
notes.
45,000 men were studied in
Yes.
185 studies. And
Oh,
in
that's
yeah,
it.
and
That's it.
in
Yes.
that the sperm levels in Western countries in particular have dropped by over
That's it.
50% in the last 4 decades because of phthalates. That
Yes,
is,
because of this
or
plastics and
phthalates. I
stuff.
think. I think the F is silent.
Phthalates.
Phthalates. Yeah,
Yes.
that is. Oh, I say F, but it's P8. That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or it's
It's an F.
phthalates.
I did Google it, and it's
Okay.
phthalates.
Either way,
So
that is actually very scary.
it's huge. Yeah.
Um, and it's all the more
Especially
reason
considering.
why single-use plastics need to be eradicated. This is
Yes.
because not only are they detrimental to the environment and to the oceans, but they're filled with phthalates that we are now ingesting, and we're having a lot of negative repercussions from it. Not only now in smaller penises for generations to come, but actually infertile, making people
In
infertile.
conclusion, in conclusion, throw your garbage in the bin or get a small pee.
Oh my goodness, Edward! Did you see
That's
that no, the well, this is just to really compound this fact, to really drive it home.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
Dr. Swan, which Edward has mentioned before, says
yeah.
that through the research that they've done, the decreasing fertility rate implies that by the year 2045, most men will not be able to father children.
Yep.
That is
Sperm is decreasing.
scary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then again, in one of the previous episodes, we did speak about babies out of the womb. So maybe, who knows, you can just artificially go and get one little head, artificially inseminate it, and let it grow in the lab, and you get your baby later. I mean, we're heading
I
towards
mean,
lab grown meat. I must have lab grown babies too. I'm down with that.
I don't know if I am.
Okay. Uh, and that is the end of NSFW. I actually meant to do that just now because now we're talking about something else entirely. So anyway, sorry
Yeah,
about
just
that.
talking.
I don't know. I mean, okay, I do agree with you that if you could do it naturally as much as possible, you should, and that if you
Yeah.
that external womb thing should really be like a last resort, because I know they've done studies on children in the womb and how that experience influences children once they're born. So now, what if you, like, what are children going to be like who are born in an artificial womb? Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
Where they don't hear the noise and sounds of mom and dad and surrounding, get what I'm saying?
but aren't there already like lab babies existing? Like
Not grown out of the
people who
womb.
are
So in other words,
no, I mean grown in
no,
jars, which is the
not yet.
same thing.
Not yet.
Oh, okay,
Because remember,
okay.
when we spoke about the lamb thing, they've only been able to get the gestation halfway. Because when it gets to the point of needing an umbilical cord, they haven't developed that yet. You see?
Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we're definitely not there yet. But then you see it brings up other factors. So like what would you do? Would you record mother and father's voices and then play them on like a loop around the baby? Like the mother's heartbeat? There are all of these
Oh,
things that, would
hmm.
that in my understanding is influence the development of children, of babies in the womb. So I'm curious to know how we would combat that. But I guess that's a discussion for another episode of Gettle.
Hmm.
Great episode, Ed.
Yeah, I think so. Very
Enjoyable,
informative.
almost entirely unedited, which was great. I'm
Almost.
liking that we're headed in this direction. It just makes my life a lot easier. Plus, I just enjoy it more. There's less needing to. I mean, it's our opinion, it's our discussions. Everyone seems to. We've been getting really good feedback with all of the unedited episodes. By the way, I mean this. I mean I'm talking to you people who are watching and listening. You seem to all really enjoy it, and we appreciate the feedback. So we're going to keep trying to do it as much as possible, and that means we may eventually, if we're able to work out the tech, is do a live stream at some point in time where we can talk about
Hmm.
things and actually get viewer and listener questions. Where we can actually interact with you and we can talk about what we talk about and hear what your opinions are and what you have to say. I think that'd be really
Yeah,
cool.
and be told live how wrong we are in telling people,
Yes.
giving people doctor advice.
I can just imagine somebody being there like, by the way, your facts are incorrect. And then we can be like,
And we'll just be like,
okay.
ban that guy, and we will continue on. This is
But
our bubble, okay?
it's something we'll possibly consider in a future episode, obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe for like a big one,
Yeah.
maybe like our 60th or something.
Yeah, we'll figure it
We'll
out.
figure it out. Alrighty then. Thank you so much, everybody, for once again tuning in to another episode of Gettle. We do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, you do know what to do. Until then, Edward and I wish you all have a wonderful week further. And until the next episode, half an hour.
Bye.